Hey, Decathlon gamer, welcome back to Zwift, a fitness journey. So today we're at roughly the halfway point of this year's Tour de France. At least we've hit the first rest day at the time of recording. I know Stage 10 will have taken place or be in the middle of Stage 10 when you may be taking a look at this. But we are going to review the first 9 stages of the Tour, and what an exciting Tour we have had so far. And I have every reason to believe, outside of maybe fewer crashes going forward, as we're no longer on the small roads of Brittany, I have every reason to believe that it's going to continue to be as exciting later on as it has been thus far. I'll get to the reason why in the end of my predictions on what's going to happen in the remaining stages. But let's go ahead and talk about the first half of the Tour de France thus far. What an epic tour we've had through the first 9 stages, starting with all the drama in the Brittany region, where you had the early stage 1 crash with that idiot facing the wrong direction with that cardboard sign sticking out well into and over the road to try to get on TV and wiping out half of the peloton, into another huge wreck later in the stage, completely unprovoked by the public. I know so much attention has gone into that single individual who caused that big wreck, but so many of those wrecks in the first 4 stages were caused by a combination of 2 factors. One, skinnier roads that led to a bottleneck here and there that did cause some of the accidents. But so many of the accidents in the first 4 stages, from my viewpoint, comes down more so to the peloton, to the riders, losing their focus for brief moments in time and then touching wheels with another rider. And then those first 4 stages, we saw quite a few either injuries or quite a few riders fully withdrawn from the race. Now, of course, the most reputable of those who were out in the first 4 stages, Marc Soler, Jack Haig, Caleb Ewan, all going down. And then it actually was quite quiet after that for a while. Not until stage 9 did we see any more withdrawals from the race, but of course now with stage 9, that number has jumped significantly. Of course, entering stage 9, Primož Roglič, Mathieu van der Poel, both withdrawing from the race, not starting on the day. But then during the stage, we saw a few riders withdrawing in the middle of the miserable conditions that we saw on stage 9. So Nans Peters, the most famous of those 3 that withdrew mid-stage. But then there were 9 more riders who were outside the time limit and removed from the race on stage 9, including 3 key sprinters, one already having claimed a stage victory during this tour. Arnaud Demar, Merlier, the one who won a stage earlier, and then Brian Cockard, all outside the time limit. And of those 3, Demar was the only one with a teammate that was there to try to get him through to the end of that stage. That's really, really poor planning from Merlier and Cockard's teams to not have somebody in with them to try to pace them towards the finish and get them within the time cut, because that was a pretty crazy and difficult stage. They really should have had help, should have had support. Now, Soler being out of the race very, very early on, of course, was a big blow to the Movistar team. But Roglič, of course, the big name, as he led most of last year's tour, was the favorite for this year's tour, or certainly joint favorite alongside Pogačar. So to have Roglič go down like that was quite surprising. The number of crashes we've had, Geraint Thomas, of course, was a big name who continued on, but of course lost significant time. It's really affected this tour. Crashes have been the face of the tour so far. Other than that, of course, it's been the performance of Pogačar. I expected stage 9 to have fireworks, and we did. We had plenty of fireworks on stage 9, not just the fact that it was the day in which the U.S. have their Independence Day, my home nation, and we had plenty of fireworks, literally, but I did expect that key stage to be a bit more pronounced than stage 8.
I was quite surprised that Stage 8 turned out the way it did. The reason why Stage 9 I predicted to be a bit more key was, A, it was the day before you go into a rest day. So people are more inclined to put in a larger effort and hope that they could recover that next day. 2, mountaintop finish, where Stage 8 finished on the long descent. 3, we had an Alls Cap, the hardest climb we've seen so far. And I figured those combination of factors would make Stage 9 more epic. And Stage 9 was as epic as I expected it to be. Just turns out that Stage 8 and Stage 5 were even more epic. What a tour we've had so far. I mean, just absolute chaos. From the crashes in the early stages, and the timing of some of those crashes, especially just before the end of the stage. Sagan and Ewan taking each other out, and really can't say anybody's at fault there on that one. No blame, just touch of wheels. To Buani and Buani and his near takeout. Good thing he was relegated there. But in terms of the GC and where we sit, Pogačar right now 2 minutes and 1 second clear of Ben O'Connor. Of course, O'Connor was totally out of GC picture. Not that he couldn't be. He's the kind of guy who you could see being in the mix. Good enough to be back into the top 10. Well, after getting his fantastic performance that now sees him sitting second place overall, coming off a rest day, I think the rest of the tour, they absolutely have to rally around him and trying to keep him in a podium place. And with an over 3-minute cushion behind him, I think he has zero chance of challenging Pogačar. But I think he has a fantastic chance to keep a podium place the rest of the way, especially with the sizable gap that he has. I think if his team rallies around keeping him high up the order, no reason that he can't. No reason that he cannot hang on to a podium. There might be one rider. One. And if they don't overly commit to protecting to everybody behind him, I think he's got every opportunity of keeping at least third place. Forget first, and potentially forget second. But if you focus to stay in the top 3, I think burying your team to do that, and then yourself just going for minimal losses, I think he could absolutely keep a top 3. Now, beyond that though, podium becomes wide open for who's going to be that third. And honestly, I think it's who's going to be second place by the end, as I think they can catch O'Connor, or they can gain a minute on one day, or they can gain a minute and a half another day. They can definitely chip away at his lead and ultimately get ahead of him. Uran is a fantastic candidate, as he's in the podium now, and a good rider. And as we've seen, is a rider who will not commit. He never does the chase. He is constantly conserving, forcing others to do the work, and minimizing losses. And I think he can minimize losses to keeping a podium potentially. But he is just barely ahead of some riders that are probably a bit stronger than he is at this point. So him keeping time, I think he's going to have to be offensive at some point and can't just defensively ride to keeping third place. He's at 5:18. Vingegaard's at 5:32. And Jumbo-Visma, their race has fallen apart quick. And I think they need to rally around Vingegaard to try to do something. Otherwise, they're going to become a stage hunter. And I fear that that's what might actually happen. My fear, you've got Jumbo-Visma down to 6 riders. Van Aert has lost a ton of time, and I thought Van Aert could hang on to a podium. I really did. I was so surprised the time that he lost. But you've got Kruijswijk, you've got Van Aert, you've got Koos, you've got Tony Martin, and you've got Teunissen left. If they were to rally around Vingegaard, I think he's got a shot at a podium. But Really? Vingegaard that good now? Young rider, born in 96. He is the youngest on the team. I don't know. Unlikely guy for them to rally around. But he sits in a good place. So what do? Obviously, they don't become the team that rides at the front. No reason for that. No reason at all. But do you try to just support and protect Vingegaard in the future mountain stages and protect his time? Yes. Yes, I think that's what Jumbo-Visma has to do. But I don't think you commit all 5 riders to that. I think ultimately they're going to commit 3 riders per day to protecting Vingegaard at all costs and try to keep him as high up the order as they can and at least keep him in the top 5. I don't think he can compete for a podium properly. So I think ultimately what they do is 2 riders per day are free elements that they hope for stage wins on. And I think that's their strategy going forward. I think in the end, Vingegaard might keep a top 5, but won't do better than that. I think the most likely rider to move his way up into second place is still the exact rider that I predicted to be second, which is Carapaz. I think Carapaz with Ineos, all 8 riders still there, plenty of firepower. Thomas should be relatively recovered coming into that next stage. I don't know why Port has been so weak, but he's probably going to be in a better state. Gegenhardt's been weak. I don't know why he's been so weak, but I would expect more from those guys. Carapaz has made big moves in both stage 8 and stage 9 that haven't quite panned out, but he absolutely looks like the strongest contender. However, at 5 minutes and 33 seconds behind Pogačar, he's literally got no chance of catching Pogačar. But I think at some point he will start to chip away at O'Connor and will start to chip away at the other competitors in the top 10 and should extend. I think he is comfortably a minute plus ahead of most other contenders, but still 5.5 or 7 or 9 minutes behind Pogačar by the end of this race. I think we've got a one-man show in yellow. But as for second, honestly, I think Carapaz has no reason to not be on that podium by the end. Will he beat O'Connor? Will he gain 3.5 minutes by the end? That's yet to be seen. But I think O'Connor is bound to lose time on one of these stages. Will his team rally and limit those losses? If they're smart, they will. They'll minimize. He'll lose 30 seconds. He'll lose a minute. But in the end, would still be around. Moss is somebody capable of getting into the podium at 5:47 down, sitting in 6th place. He's still got 7 team members, so he's still got 6 teammates around to support. Lopez has been hurt, right? He was one of the ones who got hurt in those early crashes. Has not performed well. We'll see how well he does in the later stages. Valverde is not the same Valverde anymore. He's finally showing his age. So I don't know who's left to actually support Moss. And Movistar being Movistar, and horrendously bad at tactics and being notorious for helping others exceed expectations and perform well. You look at that and got to figure that Moss is going to largely be on his own. And Moss is not a good time trialist, so he'll lose time on stage 20. And if the Movistar does what they do with tactics, they're going to overcommit to one of the stages, and he'll blow up and end up losing time and finishing down and losing time on that stage, and then being overly fatigued and the team being overly fatigued in future stages. My worry is that Moss could be one of those top 3 guys, but unlike Uran, who is save, limit losses, Moss is going to overcommit and lose too much at some point, but otherwise could contend. And is somebody who can and should move into the top 5. He's at 5:58 down right now. Bora split between Sagan and him in terms of what riders are there. I think Sagan's still in for a shout for the green jersey, but it's going to take 1 or 2 breakaway stages to get the points he needs to get back in contention. But it's not going to be a full team effort kind of thing. It's going to have to be solo for Sagan. Kelderman, meanwhile, does have a few support climbers. It is smart, is a good rider, not terrible in the time trial. I could see him moving up, challenging Vingegaard. I could see him moving ahead of Moss based on Movistar's notoriously terrible tactics. Lutsenko is another individual who I think is a bit underrated. Could do more than he is doing, but we'll see. I think one of the dark horses here for me is Gil Martin, but I don't know how much of that is bias. I really, really like Gil Martin. I know he was down on time and wasn't focused on GC, but now that he's back inside the top 10, after having a good breakaway result in stage 9 where he was about 2.5 minutes down, finished maybe 4th or 5th on the stage, suddenly he's back inside the top 10. Cofidis is not a great team, but he's never been on a big team. This is his first time on a World Tour team, and it's Cofidis. It's a small World Tour team. Before he's been with Continental Pro, been the underdog, never had the team support, and always just one of those late guys. He was in the top 5 a year ago before he went down injured. In fact, I think he was about 3rd place overall at one point, give or take. He was definitely in contention, and then he had a crash, and then started to lose time. He was definitely hurt from that, and it cost him. He still finished 11th. I think this is the year where he gets it into and stays in the top 10, but he's not going to be the guy to work. He's not going to be... We might see him attack once or twice and try to go get some time, but I think ultimately he's going to be in it for survival, like Uran, and could and should do relatively well. I don't know what his form is entering this race. If he lost time earlier, yeah, we'll see. He definitely lost 2.5 minutes to O'Connor late in stage 9, so we'll see ultimately how that balances out and what his form is like, but I think he could hang on to a top 10. And the final guy inside the top 10 right now is Gaudu. Gaudu is a good young rider, but...
Not how I wanted to go, folks. And I was actually doing just fine. But I've been feeling ill for a couple of days. And I was feeling much better today. I was doing just fine until I hit this climb. And I hit the climb and had to eke out more energy at 16%. Push harder. The strain of my legs immediately went to my head. And the massive headache that I've had at times over the last couple of days just hit me like a sack of bricks. So my legs didn't hit the wall. The pounding in my head, most certainly did. I'm trying to push through it. This is the second time I've actually attempted this course. I was doing so much better. I was probably a good 5 minutes ahead of pace compared to last time here, 2 months ago. But, ow. I'm going to take it slow for a second, see if it subsides. Get back to the voiceover. If it doesn't, though, this pounding continues on. I'm going to have to stop.
Groupama FDJ after Garnieri, Damar, Konovalovas, 3 riders out. He's down to just 5 riders left in the team. Gaudu, Armorel, Kung, Madoe, Skotson. He's got 2 climbers left. 2 decent climbers left. Madoe is pretty good. Looking at that squad, I think you've got 2 guys to support Gaudu, and he's already just 10th, and he's not a very good time trialist. It's going to be difficult for him to move up the order from here, but at 6 minutes, 7 minutes down, it's not over. He could move up a little, but I see a top 5 being a difficult prospect from here, especially with only a few team members left. 8th, 9th, possible. Hanging on to a top 10, definitely possible. In fact, there's only 11 riders left that are even decently in range. Bilbao in 11th is just seconds behind Gaudu. And I think your top 10 absolutely is going to be those 11 guys minus 1. Who misses out? Probably whoever gets hurt, whoever crashes, whoever loses significant time. I think the most likely to lose significant time, honestly, is probably Enric Mas or Vingegaard. Vingegaard from the inexperience, or Mas from movie star having terrible tactics. But looking at the order, I think Bilbao, who's already on the outside looking in, probably the weakest of the 11 riders. So, yeah, maybe him. O'Connor is going to slip down, lose time. But I think he's got a great shot at keeping that podium, like I said. So, we'll see how this all goes. But the only thing that as long as he stays on his bike and does not get involved in any crashes and get injured, I think Pogacar's already got this thing wrapped up. He's too far ahead. It doesn't matter that UAE, as I predicted, have been horrendous on tactics. In fact, the reason why we've seen the last few stages be so exciting is been because he's been in the driver's seat. He's been the rider at the front who's the virtual or actual leader, whichever. And it's been his team relied upon to lead things out. And they're so bad. Especially stage 8, where he was left on his own way before he should have been. And that's why he attacked. But then it worked out because he's in the form of his life and looking stronger than anybody we've seen in a long time. In fact, there's a he who shall not be named type Voldemort Lance Armstrong, who was really the last person who was that formidable. And there are question marks alongside that person, and there are question marks that people are posing right now. I'm not going to go there. He's getting tested. I sure hope that the sport is cleaner than it was. But it's crazy to see how strong he is right now. Crazy. He's got this race in hand, even without the team support. Points classification is the only other thing that I think is still really going to be contested. The under 25s obviously is going to go to Pogacar. KOM, easy classification right there. You got 3 guys that have amassed a fair amount of points. Quintana, Woods, Poles. Quintana only 8 points ahead of Woods, but a much better climber. And 11 points ahead of Poles. Now, a few years ago, you would have considered Poles a contender, but he's not what he was. And he's really dropped off the last couple of years. So, from those, Quintana, if he wants a KOM jersey, it's his. And it's clear from the last stage that he wants it. For me, this is what he should have done a long time ago. And I want to say that I actually mentioned in my preview that I think he would be a fantastic contender for the KOM. I want to say that's what I said about him because I thought he was overrated. I thought as a GC rider he was going to fade, and that's exactly what happened. Very, very early stages, he lost huge chunks of time. And it's like, yep, there you go. There's your really strong climber, but not the world-class climber who once was. But as a very strong climber, already 50 points amassed in the KOM, you go out for a couple more stages, the main world-class climbers are either out of the race entirely or still in contention for the GC. So you remove those guys. Simon Yates should be able to go and win the KOM, but I have no idea what's going on with Simon Yates other than that he just ran his way to 3rd place in the Giro and might just be totally out of form right now. He's not looked good. That being considered, I think Quintana's got the KOM wrapped up. Should be easy. Now, like I said, points classification, that's the last one that's still in contention. The leader, Mark Cavendish. Are you kidding me? Wow. Okay, he's got the team, obviously, who is the powerhouse. They're the defending green jersey winners, and they are the best team for that classification these days. Sagan, who massively has missed out. He's not been there. He's not contested as well. And of course, the one stage where he looked poised for a top 3, he and Ewan took each other out and finished with no points. So Sagan is only 8th place on 72 points. Philipsen is 4th with 102. Colbrelli has 121. And where did those climbing legs come from? I criticized him for being a poor climber, and suddenly he is looking really good. He could be a contender with those kind of climbing legs. Matthews, of course, is somebody who can get in the break and get points where other riders can't. He sits with 130. Cavendish, pure climber, 168. He's got a nice advantage. He's already won 2 stages. He has absolutely found form. I think he's still a threat to score a lot of points. because of the team he had. But of course, Mark Cavendish can't climb for crap. So, Matthews, Colbrelli seemingly, and Sagan. Those three could still go get a lot of points in stages where Cavendish cannot. If any of those three commit, if they get into the break, if they go for those intermediates, if they survive for a punchy finish, even if they only get 6th or 7th, could amass the kind of points to actually contest the green jersey. Otherwise, Mark Cavendish is going to win the green jersey. Are you kidding me? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. What a story that would make. Prediction? Hard to say. Cavendish and the Ducanic Quick Step powerhouse are going to be really difficult to beat. But if Matthews or Colbrelli or Sagan really commit to it, take the punchy stages, take the intermediate sprints, if they get all points in the intermediates because they're in the break, if you get one or two of those guys to truly commit to it, there's no reason why they can't catch and pass Cavendish. And it could come down to the Champs-Élysées in the final stage. In which case, then, depending on where it's at, Cavendish might be the favorite. I think Philipsen, even though he's over 100 points, as a pure sprinter, probably will be in a little bit of trouble. However, he was splitting duty between Merlier and him being the leader, alternating days. Without Merlier in the stage, with him getting eliminated on time on stage 9, that means Philipsen's now the sole leader of that team. Also, without Van der Poel there, you suddenly have a team with only a handful of riders left who have already won a couple of stages. They've got nothing left to go for other than now Philipsen. Philipsen is now the leader of that team. So they rally around him, they commit. Maybe, he's not a terrible climber, maybe he could get involved. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to Sagan. Colbrelli, climbing the way he has, could go out and pick up some points. I think he could be that guy, the way he's looking on form. Matthews should be in the mix, and he is second in the points. So I think any one of those guys, if they commit to it, and if they really go for the jersey, could contend. But otherwise, it's Cavendish's to lose. Mid-race predictions. Pogačar, 1. Carapaz, 2. O'Connor, 3. Cavendish for the points. Matthews and Colbrelli keeping the podium as it is, 2nd and 3rd. I think Quintana winning the KOM comfortably. I think Woods will challenge, but I think Woods will finish 2nd pretty regularly, but he'll get a lot of points. I think Poles will not contend. And I don't see anybody else really jumping into that competition. I think Iran's going to miss out on the podium, barely. He'll probably finish 4th. I think Vingegaard's going to slip out of the top 5. I think Moss is going to slip down the order. I'm guessing that Kelderman is probably the most likely to get up into 5th. I'd like to see Guillaume Martin get up there, but I think Lutsenko and Martin are going to be kind of in those next couple of spots. And Gaudu, probably up to about 8th. I think Vingegaard will hang on to a top 10, but I definitely don't think he'll stay up in the top 5. We'll see what happens. There's plenty of action still to come, and I think ultimately the wild first 9 stages, I don't think that's going to settle down. I think we're going to see things go just as crazy the rest of the way. Why? Because UAE will not control the race in the way that UAE could or should. In which case, chaos will ensue.
Alright folks, coming up on my finish line. Tried to use the aero tuck that Manon was talking about on GCN, and I got it activated. I had to accelerate hard to get to the right speed, and then it didn't hold it. The moment I dropped below 5%, it just shut down again, so it really didn't save me any. In fact, the extra effort to get it activated was worse. So that's unfortunate. I don't spend much time below 5%. or above 5% downhill gradient on here. You cover those kilometers very fast when you are. Anyway, at least I completed the lap. My head is absolutely pounding, but I saw I had one hill left and then a nice downhill run in to the finish and was like, screw it, I'll go for it. Might as well just be done. 200 meters of climbing, for me that's a lot. I know for most that's not. It's only 11K, but that was painful. Once I hit that climb and my head just started pounding, that was not an easy ride the rest of the way. Legs are fine though, so we'll see if I'm feeling better. Really kind of hit yesterday. I was pale for a few hours and stood in front of a toilet about to throw up a couple of times. Not a good day. Not a good day. And today was a bit better, but I think I just put myself into a bad position. I'm going to be right back where I was. Anyway, Decathlon Gamer, thanks for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.